What practical advice would you give and offer those seeking happiness?
Don't look for happiness.
Mm,
Happiness is elusive.
mm,
Look for usefulness. Look to be useful. Look for ways that you can help others. I remember Jack Canfield told us years ago, he said, when you go to a party, if you feel socially awkward and strange, well, you know what you do? You greet everybody. You
mm.
become the greeter. You make other people feel better. Here are the chapters in my book. This is the stuff that made such a first off, let's start with the quote in the book. If I were to search for the central core of difficulties in people as I have come to know them, it is that in a great majority of cases they despise themselves, regarding themselves as worthless and unlovable. So the very first thing we have to do with our children is let them know they're loved. So the first chapter in the book is building. I find in education there's so much punitive action. You know, everybody wants to learn. They
Yeah.
want to know things. But a lot of times teachers will say, they don't want to learn. That is so untrue. They just don't want to learn from you. Who makes the most mistakes? People who do things. Who
Mm.
makes the very most mistakes? People who do new things. When I was teaching high school, I would purposely make mistakes, misspell words, get math wrong, and the kids would just like they'd love it. And they'd be like, Miss Burich, you misspelled that word. What? I did? Oh,
Mm.
look how smart you are that you saw that.
Mm.
Because see, they're so used to everybody being smarter than them and not getting to show that they're smart. Just sit with the child. Put your phone away. Put your computer away. Turn off your television. Just be there, eye to eye. One child told her, I think it was a school counselor. She said, I wish my mom looked at me the way she looks at her phone.
Mm. Mm.
Kids kids are not getting attention that they.
Welcome back to another episode of Reinventing Life After 50. Today, I'm thrilled to have the incredible Martha Burich join us. Martha is a renowned author, educator, and speaker with a wealth of experience in child psychology and teaching. She's the author of the acclaimed book, Yes, You Can Raise Happy, Responsible Children, endorsed by none other than Jack Canfield. And if that name sounds familiar, you'd be correct. He is the co author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. Martha's insights have transformed countless lives, and I can't wait to dive into her wisdom today. Martha, welcome in. Should
Thank
tell
you.
everybody where you're calling in from, and and I'm excited about this.
Me too. I'm so happy to be here. I'm in Michigan, and we
Oh
have a
wow!
little bit of snow on the ground, and it's a beautiful, beautiful day. And in fact, I'll start with a little story. The
Yes.
dog got out. The dog got out this morning. We had excitement, and he went down two doors to visit Toby, his buddy, two doors down. And
Oh,
luckily, we recovered him quickly.
oh my God! So how old? You say his name is Toby, or he went to visit his
He
buddy
went
Toby?
to visit Toby. Our dog is Banshee. He's a rescue. We got him in 2018. He had a little deformed back paw. Nobody wanted him. He was 2 months old when we first saw him. And we just fell in love with him from the very beginning. And now here he is, a 6-year-old little escape artist.
Oh my God!
One day, Scott, he came home in a police car. He doesn't get out often, but he's always looking for an out. And because he loves to roam, because there's woods everywhere all around here. Who
Yeah.
knows what he finds in those woods? Our next door neighbor has chickens and pigs and cows.
Oh my
So
God. So at least he makes the most of when he gets out. He makes the most of it, right?
that's right.
Takes
That's
full-
right.
He's
He's
living.
living life fully.
That's what I was about to say. He's living his life to the fullest. That's what we all need to
That's right.
aspire to. That's great. So I'm really intrigued by your diverse experience in education. You've been a college child psychology professor. You've been a high school science teacher, and you've even specialized in special education. What prompted this transition, and how have these different roles shaped your perspective on education and child development?
That's a really, really good question, Scott. And I find in education, there's so much, I don't know, punitive action. You know, everybody wants to learn. You can tell that when people get on social media, they're constantly scrolling because what? They're looking for something new to learn. They
Yeah.
want to know things. But a lot of times teachers will say, they don't want to learn. That is so untrue. They just don't want to learn from you.
Mm.
And there's our problem because we aren't making quality connections with our students. A lot of students are here. I got to tell you this story. I have a
Yeah.
friend when he was in third or fourth grade, and he's always had attention deficit, very active, hyper. He's a male, and that's very typical for males. Anyway, his teacher actually put him in front of the classroom with a dunce cap on his head. And I mean, that's just, that's horrible. He's 40 years old now, and that is still has shaped his life.
Sure.
Well, of course, he dropped out of high school because there was no, where was the quality in school for him? Where were the quality relationships? He was constantly punished for being who he was. So he got a GED and he always felt like a second class citizen because of it. What he didn't know, and too many people don't know, is that most people who get a high school diploma, cannot pass that GED test.
It's
I taught it. It is a hard test, let me tell you, and it gets harder every year. So if you have a GED, you should be proud because that really shows determination and you had a goal and you met it. And not to mention that is a hard test.
yeah.
So anyway, what we do is we don't make school quality because we punish reward. Well, what a lot of people don't know, they seem to think that rewards will get you what will make people do what they want them to do, or if the punishment is heavy enough, the child will or the person will rethink. But in actuality, who makes the most? We'll start with mistakes. Who makes the most mistakes? People who do things. Who
Mm.
makes the very most mistakes? People who do new things,
Mhm.
different things. And when I this conversation is just going everywhere here today,
No,
Scott.
this is what we do.
When I was 62, I took piano lessons for the very first time. And my piano teacher was an elementary school music teacher. So I practiced and practiced, and I had one major song that I was working on, which was back then it was Shania Twain's "From This Moment," which isn't an easy piece to play, but boy, I practiced and practiced, and I had it down note by note. Anyway, come the end of November, she said, "You know what? We're having a Christmas recital, and I want you to be in it. That's for children. Who's going to be there? Grandmas and grandpas and moms and dads." And I said, "Okay, why not? Why not?" So recital day comes. I play after the 5-year-old, who is very good, and before the 10-year-old who wrote his own music.
Oh,
The
great.
kid was a phenom. Well, anyway, so after the show and all the children had played, all these parents and grandparents had come up to me and they're like, "Oh my goodness, you have inspired me. I was going to take tennis. I was going to learn how to do this. I was going to do that, but I thought I was too old." Well, it doesn't, you know what? It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter if you're two or if you're 200, well, or it doesn't matter. As long as you're alive, you can learn and do. And that's the whole thing about making mistakes. Of course, you're going to make mistakes. If you don't, or you're a robot. And I'm even hearing that robots are making mistakes.
Yeah.
So, you know what? The more mistakes you make, the better your life is really because it means that you're trying new things. I'm like real, what's the word for it? Reticent to do push the wrong button on a computer, okay? Because one time I pushed the wrong button and deleted the hard drive. Whoops.
Yeah, because typically, like we'll say, like in tech, right? Like, hey, you can't mess anything up that we can't undo. That you can't undo.
But luckily, I only put it in the trash can, so I was able to find it. But but anyway, so that has kind of scared me a little bit. But
Yeah.
anyway, this one woman, she's like this phenom with technology, and see that's Banshee. Can you hear him?
Get here. It's okay.
There's a deer
He
out
wants to
there or
be part of the
something.
show. He's like, hey, I want to be a part
Yeah.
of this.
Oh yeah. And anyway, so she's a phenomenal technology. I said, "Wow, how do you know all this stuff?" She goes, "I just push buttons, honey. I just push buttons." Well, you know what? She makes a lot of mistakes, doesn't she? But what's the end result? She really knows
The,
technology
the
and can
mistakes
do a
are
lot of.
yeah, the mistakes are the gift, right? And I think part of that too is like too old, too old, too old. I get that quite often, right? I'm 52, training clients, new clients all the time, whatever, and they'll come up and say, only if I were your age, I could do those kind of things too, because I do a lot of mobility type work." And I say, "How old are you?" They're like, "Just turned 50." I'm like, "I'm 52," and they don't really know what to say. Then it's like, "Too old? Who told you that there was some time limit on whatever it is that you want to do. Like, time is going to pass regardless. So you might as well be doing things that you love to do. And
That's
it's
it.
only what you're telling yourself if you're too old. Nobody else gets to tell you that. And in fact, I say this often: if aliens came down to Earth and saw how we judge and shame and blame one another, they'd be like, "What in the hell? This is why we haven't invaded you guys all these years, because you guys are going to take yourselves out the way
That's
you
right.
shame and blame one another."
That's
So
right.
I mean, I think we may have talked about this in the discovery call. I'm not really sure, but at 48, I decided to go back to my school and pursue my PhD in philosophy. Who says I couldn't? You know what I mean? Like, so I'm not done yet, but it's a journey. It's a journey, and like I say, time's going to pass regardless. So you might as well just be doing. You might as
That's
well
right.
be
It's a
just
journey. If you'll let it be.
yes,
If you'll let it be. Life is exciting if you'll let it be. But you know what? Life is also boring, aggravating, annoying, frustrating. But you know what? Uh, grow up. Grow up. Yes, that is life. That is life. Just say to yourself, you know what? Yes, I don't like this. I don't appreciate this, but I am an adult and I can get through this.
yeah,
So, and one guy said, you know what? You can start your day over anytime, anytime.
absolutely.
So start your day over.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So I'm curious, how did your expertise in child psychology inform your teaching methods in high school settings? Did you encounter any challenges or surprises when applying uh, psychology principles in practical classroom environment?
But you know, it's all relationship, and it's just like you said, blame and shame goes nowhere. We're human, and a lot of times you'll ask somebody, "Why'd you do that?" They don't know. They don't know. You know, we have so many complex needs. We need attention. We need to feel powerful. You know, if I ask somebody to do something, I need to feel like, well, you'll do it. You know, I mean, not that I'm a boss or anything, but you know, if I ask somebody, you know, please don't say that word in front of me, it hurts my feelings,
Hmm.
and they do it, that shows that I have, you know, power in means of they respect me, they appreciate me, they're
Hmm.
willing to do things to make me feel more comfortable, and that's important. And at school, we don't get a lot of that too often. And you know, one mother posted, okay, what was her child? Her child was 3. I think her child was 3. No, it was a baby. The baby was like 5 months old. And the mother said, "You know, my baby's not rolling," whichever way the babies roll at around that age.
Hmm.
And I said, "What's the rush?" She goes, "Well, that's what's on the charts." I said, "Those charts, they take a gazillion babies and
Right.
they put 50% of them can roll by this age. 50% are and 50% aren't. That's just an average. You know,
Yeah.
there are children who never talk until they're 2 years old, and then you
Exactly.
can't stop them. You know, those are just averages. So here we go to school, and there's a cartoon where you've got an elephant and a monkey and a turtle and a snake and a bird. And the teacher says, "Okay, now for the test, you need to fly up to the top branch."
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So everybody flunks but the bird.
Of course.
So everybody feels bad about themselves
Hmm.
except the bird. This is what we do at school. This is what we do at school. And children are always, people and humans are always comparing themselves. I'm worse than them. And all you hear all the time is, "I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough." Who said that? Who said that?
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of times I go to the jail every Monday. Here's another thing I do. I'm in the recovery community
Because
because
you're on work release. Is that what you're telling me, Mark?
after oh, you funny. Just like one of my students. Anyway,
Uh,
after I retired, I fell into that, and it's very typical. You retire, you start drinking. You know, I'm bored, right? I'm bored. And when I say, you know, you can't stop, you're drinking every day. Because, you know, work, thank goodness, I loved being a teacher. I loved it. It was a lot of fun and challenging. And then suddenly I have no challenges. And so next thing you know, I'm drinking every day. I'm like, oh, Lord, this cannot
mhm.
continue. So I went to AA, and that was over 6 years ago. But now I'm going to the jail about 3 years, and I talk to the addicts and the alcoholics. And where are we going with this? Relationships. And you know what? People don't want perfect people. They
Mm-mm.
need people to say, you know what, I did the exact same thing you did. You know, I used to, it used to be alcohol I couldn't stop drinking. Now it's donuts.
Mm. Yeah,
You
right.
know,
Yeah.
people just, they want to know that you're human. And the ladies just told me last week. This is really interesting. There's a woman that comes in before me that she gets paid to be there to teach them some kind of alcohol and drug class, but she's not an alcoholic or a drug addict. She can drink a half a glass of wine and set it down and be done. No alcoholic could ever do that.
No.
If you see a glass, somebody didn't finish their drink, it's like, what? Are you crazy?
Okay.
So that's how you can tell she's not an alcoholic. And she tells the girls all the time, no, I'm not. So they don't, she doesn't understand them. It's clueless to her why they can't stop. Why can't you just stop? Just put it down. Just put it down. So the girls don't relate to her because they see her as, well, she thinks she's better than we are. And there might be something in her mind. She's a lovely woman and I really like her. But the gal said to me, they said, we just can't relate to her.
Mm.
And we understand. But, next week I am going to talk to the girls about how we really need to show this woman appreciation. She's
Yeah.
coming there. She likes them. So we're gonna work on really, because what they do is they talk and they disrespect her.
Mm.
And so we need to work on that because that's what we all work on is every day, what can I do to be a leader? What can I do to be a better human being? So we're going to talk about that Monday, how we can make this woman feel better because it is her job and she has to be there. And how many people are even willing to go into a jail for their job?
Oh my God.
It's
Yeah.
a tough place. So we're gonna work on that. But
So
anyway, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, no, no. It makes me think about, I think in our discovery call we're talking about and people that have followed me over from our other podcast to here, a decade doing this. And we never there because we live stream. One, you can't make an edit because you're live streaming. This is recorded. But what we found is that people enjoyed the flubs more than the perfect scripted things that we do. And we don't script, but what I mean is we have, you know, this segment we're doing this segment we're going to talk about this. But like there's this running joke. How many words in this episode is Scott going to butcher and pronounce incorrectly? Like that's just a thing. But people like that. And it's the same thing. I mean, flawed, quote unquote, is relatable because we all have our things. And
Mhm,
it's like it's imperfectly perfect, right? That's what we
mhm,
are. And you probably know this, particularly given the type of work you've done. I know you've probably run across this, but the the Japanese art of joinery, right? It's called kintsugi, I think is what it's called. I always pronounce that wrong. Again, here we are. But what word is Scott going to blunder? But what it is, they take porcelain that has cracked or like vases and things like that have cracked
mhm,
and broken, and they join it back together with gold and they put lacquer over it. What
wow.
actually turns it into something more beautiful. And really, the lesson in that is it's not those cracks and that what you see is not proof that you're broken. It's proof that you're healed. And
Right.
so that's what people want to see. Somebody that's walked it, like you said, somebody that's walked it, talked it, done it. And if you haven't, at least come in with an immense amount of empathy and grace and try
Mhm,
to hear and understand, so um maybe that's what she's got to do is really, I don't know, I'm not there, is to hear them and see them. Because really, like, think about this, Martha, and in your work, there are many things that people want, but I think the common things that people really want, because we all have like all across the globe, all different backgrounds and all that kind of stuff. We all want security, safety, love, and all that kind
mhm,
of stuff. But I think there's a common thread. I'd say this quite often to my personal training clients is people want to feel secured, respected, and cared for. And I have found over the course of doing this for all of these years because personal training people think, oh, you're helping them with their physical. God, 90% of what I'm doing is mental, is what we're
mhm,
working on.
mhm,
But to help people feel
mhm.
secure, respected, and cared for, they really just want to be heard, like
Right.
truly heard, not just listened to, but heard. So maybe there's a lesson for her. There's some truth in the complaints that they're having, right? That, man, subconsciously maybe it's coming out a different way, but subconsciously, like, we don't feel like we're actually being heard.
Mhm.
Like maybe she
Right.
needs to really get in the trenches and say, no, first I want to recognize I can't pretend like I could ever really fully understand because I've not been there. But I'm going to walk along with you with this and try to learn this the best way that I can, so that I can help you and be a tool for you. So then you open up a communication there.
Mm.
So I don't know. I don't know. That's
Well,
immediately.
two stories. Two stories to go with that. Okay, one about teaching, and then one at the jail. The ladies this last Monday when we were talking about this, they said, whenever you're here, nobody talks, everybody listens.
So you're talking about when you're there,
Yeah,
or yeah, okay.
no, none of the ladies, they're very respectful, and because they said you keep our attention the entire time,
Mm,
and then because that's why they were talking about this lady, and okay, so that's one story. The second is when I was teaching high school, I would purposely make mistakes, misspell words, get math wrong, and the kids would just like they'd love it. And they'd be like, Miss Bright, you misspelled that word. What? I did? Oh,
mm,
look how smart you are that you saw that.
mm,
Because see, they're so used to everybody being smarter than them and not getting to show that they're smart. So I would do that a lot, and not a whole lot, but enough so that they could feel like, well, you know what, everybody makes mistakes and I'm smart too. So that's that. And why do I put those two stories together? Because the reason the ladies listen to me is because I do connect with them. And
mhm,
because I don't, people don't understand life is hard,
mhm,
and people have done a lot of things they wish they wouldn't have.
mhm.
And there's a lot of shame. In fact, a lot of times, the more people are judgmental, the more shame I think maybe they hold.
Oh yeah.
And so we have to have. In fact, one lady at the jail. Here's another story. One lady at the jail said to me, in our group, we were talking about forgiveness. And,
Mhm.
in AA, you have to do a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves and where we've been selfish, where we've been greedy, where we've been. Oh, here, now another story. A young guy was telling his AA story. He came in when he was 19. He had a really terrible upbringing, and he was a little con man and a thief and everything else. So he got a sponsor, and one day the sponsor was talking to him, and he was trying to, let him figure some things out, explain some things to him. And the young man said, well, I'm a good guy. I'm a good guy. And the sponsor said, no, you're not.
Mm.
You're a liar. You're a thief. You're a con man. You're getting better. But let's be honest.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we don't see who we really are. And when we can admit, you know what, I try to be a good person, but yeah, a lot of times I am selfish. Yes, a lot of times I am thoughtless, and it's important for us to acknowledge that and see. And so now let's get back to the story about this woman. And she said, why would God forgive me if he won't forgive the devil? Well, see, what people don't understand is that ego goes both ways. It goes too low and too high. Some people think too high of themselves, and that what people think that someone who has an ego has. No, 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 no. It's that. But also people who think they're worse than everybody else. That's bondage of self. That's ego. Oh, I'm so terrible. Nobody can forgive my sins. Oh my God. And when she said that, I knew. I said, we got an ego problem. You are so self-concerned. If God, how could you even compare yourself to the devil? That's not even humanly possible to be anywhere near the devil. And the reason God, and I had to look it up on the internet, and I brought her the papers. The reason God didn't forgive the devil is because he never asked. If you ask to be forgiven, you'll be forgiven. These things happen, and we have to be careful that we aren't thinking too poorly of ourselves, because then we can't help anyone else.
So anyway, you picking back up kind of where you were talking about, um, you're finishing the story about the guy. No, you're not a good guy, and like sometimes we got to own that, right? So pick back up
Mhm.
there because that was really good.
Well, yeah, so his sponsor had to tell him, no, you're not. You're not. You're a con man, a liar, and a thief. And I understand that that's how you've had to live because you've lived on the streets and you're young. But now it's time to change. And because you do have a good heart.
Yeah.
And, and this kid, I'm going to start crying. This kid now, I think he's 30. So he came in when he was 19. So he's about 32 now. And in 13 years, he's a leader. We have this thing called the Alcathon, the Christmas Alcathon, which is an all-day AA meeting with food and meetings and speakers and groups, and just a nice thing, because the holidays are a really tough time for a lot of alcoholics, and especially those that don't have family, and those that do have family that drive them nuts, and who drink and everything. So they come to the alcohol. You can stay for 10 minutes, 10 hours, whatever you like. Anyway, this kid, he manages this thing, and he's been doing that for years. He's an absolute leader. Now, here's a child who came. Oh my, this is so moving for me because he's such a nice young man. He came from the streets. He was a con man, a liar, and a thief. And look at him now. People look to him to help them. He's helped so many people stop drinking, stop drugging. See, it doesn't matter where you came from. It matters where you are.
Uh, so yeah, you're telling the story. I apologize. So it records
Okay,
in the
so
background.
it got the story.
It got most of the story. Yeah, it got
Okay,
most of the story. Yeah,
okay.
yeah, you froze up. So again, to the listeners, there may be. I'll leave this portion in. To the listeners, there may be a couple of spots where it dropped out. Apologize. It's on my side of things. We had some internet issues, but what it made me think about is talking about. I wrote this quote, and I'm going to look off to my other screen because I can't remember it word for word. So, and this is just talking about our how we heal and things. So, in what ways might your life improve if you were to recognize that we are all just figuring it out as we go? In what ways would your image of yourself improve because you're not comparing yourself to other people thinking they have it figured out? And in what ways can we heal looking back on our caregivers' stories and realizing that they were just figuring it out too? That changes a whole lot of things, right?
Hmm.
Because if you are going to give people credit for all the wrong that they've done, you better damn sure give them credit for all the right they've done too.
Yes, and Scott, that's such a good point, because when I also go to the treatment center every Wednesday night and talk to the ladies there, and I tell them at every meeting, because there's different people every time I go every Wednesday. I say, look, people are going to blame. You're blamed for everything. Doesn't matter. You know what? You're an easy scapegoat. So you are going to have to, one, get a thick skin and don't defend yourself, and just tell them, I'm sorry you feel that way, but did I put the drink in your hand today?
Mm,
Did I put the drug in your hand this minute? Did I, if you're still drinking or drugging, um, am I the one that told you to not go after that job that you really wanted?
mhm,
So you need to man up. Yes, I'm a human being and I made a lot of mistakes, and I'm not alone. We play all these games. I play a big game. I still do it now at my age. I always tell people, Mom loved my brother better. Well, you know what? I believed that for the first
mhm,
50 years of my life. And
mhm.
I think the first 65. Wait a minute. Anyway,
Yeah,
so I, I use that as an excuse for a lot of things,
mhm.
for a lot of things. And yeah, my mother loved us all, and maybe she did love him better. Does that mean I couldn't excel? Does that mean I couldn't go after what I
That's it.
wanted? Does that mean, no, it's a big game we play. And I was on the treadmill with a woman a couple of weeks ago, and she's like 70, and she's talking to me about her 50-year-old daughter, going, well, you always did love my sister better. You always gave her this, and you always that. And I was like, good Lord, honey, you're going to hear that till the day you die.
Mhm.
We're always, because we want excuses. We want excuses. And you know what? It's easier to blame you than me.
Yeah, and you know what? We are not our circumstances.
That's right.
We're not our circumstances. So people
And
really.
here's another story. Okay, so a man was an alcoholic, and he had two sons. And one of the sons grew up to be very successful, married, had a lovely family, was a good family man, did not drink. The other son was an alcoholic, and he was homeless. So somebody interviewed both sons at different times in different places, and said, how did you why are you like you are today? Why do
Mhm.
you what do you attribute your success to, the one son? And why are you homeless and alcoholic? And they both said, my dad.
Mm.
It's all
It's all right there, man. It is. It's the games and the things we tell ourselves. I mean,
that's it.
the story that we tell ourselves is so it's so impactful. Words matter, and that self-talk matters. Um,
Oh, and I
and
just talked to a man. Oh, go ahead.
oh, go. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
just talked to a man last night. He's a schizophrenic, been a schizophrenic since he was a little kid. His mother was a schizophrenic. and he's on medications. The guy's been in jail, he's been homeless,
Mhm.
and he was talking to us and he was telling us how, I still hear the voices. I still hear the voices and they tell me to do things. He goes, but now I've learned to talk back to them
Mm,
and to check reality and say, is it real what they're telling me? And I asked him, I said, do they have a different voice or is it your voice? He goes, no, it's my voice.
mm.
It's just like you and me thinking
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
ourselves. But he has to really check reality, and he's been like that all his life. And then he said to me how his mother was a schizophrenic, and he was one of 8 children. He was one of 8 children. See, when you really talk to people and you find out their backgrounds, you start to realize, wow, and he's still alive.
So it
You
is it's in here's what I find interesting about that, something that I just thought of is even a schizophrenic recognizes and understands the voices in the head to put them in check. Okay. Those that aren't diagnosed schizophrenia that are walking quote unquote normal, and I use
know,
that very loosely because none of us are normal, right? But walking normal, not schizophrenia, are allowing certain emotions to control us. You're walking in ego all the time. You're walking in whatever that is. So
mhm,
if someone that has schizophrenia can effectively do that with proper self-talk, you can't tell me and continue to use an excuse that you cannot also do that too, because we we create our destiny, and we get to choose by the words that we say to ourselves how this. But also the other side of that too is you also have to give yourself grace in that too,
mhm.
because think about, as humans, what we do is we sure do give out grace like it's expiring to other people so quickly, but man, we don't do it for ourselves like we
Boy,
should.
isn't that the truth?
Mhm,
Goodness,
mhm.
yes. And you see that so often. Oh, and in fact, the last time I was at the treatment center, what's today? Friday, Wednesday night. I was in a group of about 8 or 9 ladies. Scott, 3 of them had lost, 2 of them lost children to drug addiction and alcoholism, and
God.
one of them lost her baby. So 3 women were suffering loss, and unfortunately, I can't pussyfoot around them, and I
Mm.
can't be. I'm empathetic, but I can't be sympathetic.
Yeah.
And they're in treatment for a reason, and I tell them, look, you're all getting too old for this. And when they go into this, I lost my son and blah, and they start to crying and everything. I say, I understand. I lost my brother when he was young. My mother lost her son. I said, and you cannot use that as an excuse anymore.
Mm,
That's you're using that. That is your excuse to
mm,
not live. Other
mhm.
people need you. Okay, you lost one son, but you still have others, don't you? You
That's
still
it.
have other children. You have grandchildren. You have pets. You have people in your life who need you. And every time that you continue to take yourself out of life because of that, you're um, shortchanging everyone else in your life and yourself because
And
people need you.
you still have purpose in this world, and your son
Exactly.
would want you to continue on to have that
That's
purpose.
right. And it's because that happened to her that she can help other people who suffered. I
Yeah.
can't help someone. I can help a little bit, but I haven't lost a child.
Mhm.
So you're not going to relate to me. I'm not going to be able to relate to you. You need someone who's been through what you've been through. They can help so many people, but they see that they don't realize how important they are. And this is my opinion. I think schooling has so much to do with ruination,
Mm,
destroying people, children, culture, but that's a whole nother story.
mm. Wow. So your book called "Yes, You Can Raise Happy, Responsible Children" has
Right here.
here it is. Show it. I love it. We're gonna make sure we link this in the notes. It's generated uh, significant praise, even again from Jack Canfield. What inspired you to write the book, and what are some of the core principles you emphasize for parents?
Oh, Scott, that is such a fabulous question. When our son was 4, Lord, that child was spoiled. Oh, because we were typical parents and we thought that the way you show a child love is you say yes all the time.
Mm.
And then when I would say no,
But
he'd
isn't
be
that
like,
so easy to do though? Like
oh,
it's so easy, right? Yeah.
immediate gratification will ruin your life.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. And so when I would say no, or anybody would say no, he would push because we're like, oh, what do you mean no? I don't hear no. You're going to say yes. So we'd give in. And my mother in law, she told me once, she goes, he'd be a lovely child if you just take no for an answer.
Yeah.
So, and he had me trained. Oh, Scott, he had me trained. I would buy two of the exact same toy so that when he broke one, I'd just be able to pull out the other one and not have to go back to the store and get another one. That's, see, that's the difference between the good parent and the responsible parent. I was a good parent. Ruined him. And I was not a responsible parent because a responsible parent says no and means it. And so I had to learn. I had to learn how to do that. So I got the information and we turned him around in 6 weeks. 6 weeks. And and let me tell you, here are the chapters in my book. This is the stuff that made such a difference. Well, here, first off, let's start with the quote in the book. If I were to search for the central core of difficulties in people as I have come to know them, it is that in a great majority of cases they despise themselves, regarding themselves as worthless and unlovable. So the very first thing we have to do with our children is let them know they're loved. So the first chapter in the book is building self-esteem,
Mhm.
and that is, he may have been spoiled and never heard yes, but also, did he have a really good self-image of himself? I don't know, at age 4. We'll see. But what we had to build up was his feelings of I'm competent and I'm good, because what he was building up was I'm in charge, which
Mm,
is not good. Which
mm-mm,
is not good, because little children, if they think they're in charge, that's very insecure and
mm,
scary.
mhm,
Adults must be in charge. Okay, so building self-esteem, discipline. What do we do about discipline? That's chapter 2. Creating positive relationships with your children, raising smart children, meal times at the grocery store, travel across the street or across the country, creating a safe home to strengthen your marriage, and the differences between praise and encouragement. And it's only 60 pages. It's just bullet points of what I learned. And so the very first thing I had to do was stop focusing on what he did wrong and start focusing on what he did right.
mhm,
So I just began a big thing of complimenting. If he half tied his shoe, wow, you got a good start on that. Because I would wait until the thing was finished. If he was quiet and playing nicely, oh, isn't that wonderful? You're playing by yourself. What do you think? You're really enjoying that. What's got you so engrossed? And have and invite a conversation. And so rather than criticizing him or getting aggravated when he would want attention or whatever, so I would purposely encourage his solitary play
mhm,
and talk to him, because a lot of people don't know that what toddlers do is they'll play by themselves, but then they'll come up and sit on your lap because they need to know you're still there. So all you got to do is reassure them. Yes, mommy's still here, daddy's still here. And that's great. They'll sit there, they'll look at you for a little bit, and then they'll go back to playing if they feel secure. And
mhm.
so I really needed to build that up. And he knew he was loved, but he didn't. He didn't. We were typical parents trying to correct our child, make him a good child, instead of realizing all the good that he already had in him.
So
So,
yeah, so it's like it makes me think of Simon Sinek, right? He talks about the how you phrase something, right? So, for example, you have a brand new, beautiful white couch, and the rule is to not eat on the couch because you don't want it to get food or stains on it. Instead of saying, "Hey, don't eat on the couch," it should be focused on what you really want them to do. Hey, we actually eat at the kitchen table, right? Because what happens, I mean, it's this that old thought saying, if I say don't think about a red car, what's the first thing that pops in your
mhm,
head? The damn red
mhm,
car. So it's about rephrasing and repurposing,
right.
focus on what you want somebody to do as opposed to highlighting what is wrong. So, and I think it's also I have found in us raising our kids. So when we moved, I'm from Nashville, my wife's from Toronto. We moved to the LA area. When we were
Mm,
moving back, we set the kids, my daughter's a little bit younger then, but my son was old enough to have this conversation. Hey, it's important to you. You're a part of this family. We're not going to tell you what we're going to do. Your input is just as equally important in this family as ours. We're thinking about this move. What are your thoughts? Give it a couple of days and let's talk about it. I don't want you to feel like you have to do what we want to do. Here are our opportunities, because you don't want to persuade that you want it to be their genuine thought as much as you possibly can. And a few days later, my son called. He said, "Hey, I've thought about it. I do want to move back to Tennessee." So another piece that has worked really well for me, I'm not saying this will work for every parent, but when a child makes a mistake, you have that conversation about, hey, what opportunities did we have? What could we have done here better? What that does is opens up a line of communication, as opposed to, if you do this, the consequences are you're going to be grounded, whatever, all these kind of things. Instead of, hey, there may be repercussions, but first of all, I'm going to say, thank you for bringing this to me and let's have a conversation. And almost always, if they did and they were very honest and open with it, there were no repercussions, right? Because the punishment for them was enough for them to tell you. That's the
Mm-hmm.
worst punishment they could have ever received. But also,
Mm-hmm.
the flip side of that too is, if I was ever in a discussion with my son or whatever, or my daughter, and it got heated and I got out of control of myself, to come back later and say, and you purposely put your body in a position lower than them, right? So
Mm-hmm.
dominant over them. And I say, hey, dad, earlier, I'm growing and learning too. I'm a work in progress. I want to ask you first, I'm sorry, but I want to ask you to forgive me and understand that I'm working through this as well. And man, like, that just gives them, they're like, because there's a certain age, right, where you're a hero to them and then they don't like you.
Mm-hmm.
But no, but there's a certain age, right, where you're the hero to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so imagine if your hero was Superman and you met him for the first time and all he did was admonish you, right, for whatever wrong that he knew about you. It lets them know, hey, yeah, dad is Superman to me, but Superman's, issue was kryptonite. Well, dad's kryptonite is X, and he's
Mm-hmm.
acknowledged that's something that we need to be aware of and work on together. It gives them the opportunity and permission to also make mistakes and also have conversation about those mistakes. So um, those are some of the things that have worked for us in our home.
Yeah,
So
those are good. And you make a good point. You don't talk to them unless you're calm.
yeah,
You make that exact point. I'm not calm right now. We can't talk about this. You're not calm right now. We can't talk about this. When we're calm, let's talk about it.
yeah.
Because you're not going to get anywhere if no one's calm. So yeah, you make a very very good point there. And the family meeting
Yeah,
and
I
the
forget
family
what
meeting.
yeah, I forget what culture it is. I don't know. I've read it somewhere that if somebody's really upset or mad or whatever, the tribe or whatever will send them out and they
Mm-hmm.
make them walk. It's like they'll give them their sentences. Okay, you got to walk 500, steps, whatever it is, and then walk back. Well, by the time they walked out and back, they're not mad anymore. It's just, yeah, they laugh it off
Mm-hmm.
and they have a conversation, and they still do it to this day. But I forget which tribe it is that does that. But think about that. I mean, that's that thing. They're forcing them to calm down and think about, like, because many times, like, think about this: the vast majority of issues in the world, in anything, comes down to lack of proper communication.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times the lack of proper communication is like, hey, let's just chill out for a minute. We don't have to solve this right now. Short of most things, most things are very insignificant. So let's, like, cool it down for a minute. Let's think
Mm-hmm.
about this and come back where we're calm and we're more closer to our essence so we can have a normal conversation, human to human. And then we can see each other's differences as well and have
Mm-hmm.
some empathy in that difference, right? So um yeah, I mean, it's just about getting separation and finding your essence and peace so you can be rational. Because most people, like, the vast majority of people, make decisions based on emotion and
Mm-hmm.
then justify it later with some rational, what they think is rational behavior, or they just validate that emotional thing by the stories they're telling themselves. So
Right, right, yeah, and, um, there was a show on TV, I haven't had a television since 2008, but before that, there was I think it was only 1 season, they had a show where parents from the US would trade places with parents
yeah,
from the Africa or somewhere. I mean, they would send these US parents to a place where the toilets were holes in the
yeah,
ground.
yeah,
And it was really, really interesting because one time this US kid was just having a fit. He was going crazy. He was so mad. And the guy from the supposedly undeveloped country said, "Oh, come on, let's go for a walk." And they just walked.
Mhm.
This is so moving. The child calmed down. They were able to have a discussion. They just went for a walk. And you know what? Sometimes that's all you need to do with your kid. Just go for a walk.
Mhm.
Just go outside. Just sit outside on the porch. Look at the cars go by. Just sit with the child. Put your phone away. Put your computer away. Turn off your television. Just be there, eye to eye. One child told her, I think it was a school counselor. She said, I wish my mom looked at me the way she looks at her phone.
Mm, mm,
Kids
God.
kids are not getting attention that they need. And you know what? If you're going to say something to your kid, put your phone down, go walk over to the child. Don't yell across the room. Walk over to the child, get down on their level, eye to eye. There used to be a place called the Judavine Center in St. Louis, Missouri. That was back when it was 1972, when there was maybe 20 autistic people in the world.
Mhm.
Doctors used to have to get on a plane and fly 10,000 miles to see an autistic child. But anyway, so I was a volunteer at the Judavine Center for Autistic Children when it was very, very rare. And I forgot where I was going with this. Well, I'll tell you my story at the Judavine Center. One little guy, he was 4, and he had never spoken in his life, never spoken. And so we were finger painting, and he wasn't finger painting. So I just put my hands gently over his and finger painted, helped him.
Mhm.
And he yelled, "Let go." And I didn't know these were his first words. I was clueless. And I said, "Yeah, I'll be happy to let go as soon as I feel you finger painting on
Mhm.
your own."
Mhm.
And he did. And so I didn't think anything of it, And then I was telling one of the people that worked there, yeah, the kid yelled at me today or said something. And she goes, "What? What? He's never talked in his life. Those are his first words."
Wow.
Wow.
And you had no idea?
I had no idea.
Oh my
No
God.
idea. Wow.
Imagine, like,
Mm.
had you known and that happened,
Oh, yeah.
I would have passed out probably. Like,
Yeah, oh, yeah, so we were talking about attention,
yeah.
attention. So with autism, you had to say, "Look at me."
Mhm.
You had to go like this,
Mhm.
"Look at me." And parents need to do the same thing. "Sweetheart, look at me." You're at the grocery store, the kid's running all over. Well, first off, before you get there, you got to tell the kid, "Here's what I expect of you."
Mhm.
And don't scare children. Please don't say a bad man's going to get you. A small
Just
child can't handle that. You
I'm
say,
gonna get
"You know what?
over there to
I need to see
yeah,
you.
yeah.
I want to see you. If you can't see me and I can't see you, we got a problem.
Mhm.
So I need to see you the entire time at the grocery store. So if you can't see mommy or daddy, then you need to come right back." Well, but if I don't see you, you're going to have to sit in the cart. Do you understand? Okay, let's go. So now the child runs off. What do? You go, "Okay, I see you've decided to sit in the cart." Boom. Now help me find the bananas. Give them a job. And
Mhm.
make sure when you take the food off out of the cart, if you have to take it out of the cart, hand it to the child to put on the conveyor, do it. Give that child things to do. Where are the bananas? Where's your favorite soup? Where's I need help. You need to help me. Hold on to this. One man walked into the store and he had 3 children under the age of 5 and a baby on his back. No cart.
Mhm.
He's got the little boy had the apples. One child's holding the hand of another. Two of them have items in their hands. Absolutely no disturbances. Nobody's running around. And this is, where do you see this? You know what I mean? Most kids are holy terrors in the grocery store. This man had complete control. You know why? Because he raised his children that we're all a part. We're a family.
Mhm.
We're worked together to do things and we all help each other. Too many people don't realize that a healthy family, family is the foundation of society, and healthy families help make healthy societies.
Mhm.
Look around. We need to be healthier.
Mhm. No, I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more. So I know that you have, I believe in my research that you have a new book in the works, specifically for teachers, titled "Yes, You Can Teach Them All." Can you share some of the insights into the upcoming release and how you hope that it will empower educators to reach every student?
You know what's interesting about that book? I wrote that book years ago. I went to Kinko's and put it all together,
Oh my God.
and I sold about, I don't know, six, eight copies. Anyway, one day I was giving a presentation at the National Education Association or somewhere,
Hmm.
and this man comes up to me and he's got a copy of the book in his hands, and he goes, "I was so glad to hear you were coming here to talk to us. I got your book. A friend of mine gave me your book. This thing is fabulous." And I'm thinking to myself, how the heck did he? I only sold like six copies. This guy's not even in the same state I live in. And that book has been sitting in a drawer for years. And I just pulled it out and thought, I need to publish this. So yeah, I'm working on getting it. It's finished basically. I just need to add a few things to it, and I'm going to publish it and get it out by 2025. But what's it about? It's about discipline and counseling skills in the classroom. Children, just like you've already said, Scott, they're desperate for somebody hear me, somebody listen to me, somebody appreciate me, you know, and see me as the human being I am.
Hmm.
And that's basically what the book is. I when I was teaching, I had a student. Oh my goodness, she was my absolute nemesis, and she was just trouble every single class period. And I was talking to the principal about it, and I said, I just don't know what to do with her. And she goes, Martha, you got to be her friend. Her friend? She's a devil. How am I going to be her friend? She goes, Martha, you better find a way. You find what she's interested in, and you get into that. So I
Hmm.
did. I asked the child what she was interested in. She told me what kind of magazines she liked. So I went and bought her one. And then next time she came to class, I would ask her, did you see any good articles in that magazine? Blah blah. Well, we developed a relationship, and it took a while, but it happened. Well, one day she comes into class, nobody else was there, and she said, and we were talking. She goes, I got to tell you something. Me and a lot of the other girls had gym class before we had maths class. And we used to sit in gym class and try to find ways to make you mad. So when we got to class, we would, and then we put our plan into action. And of course, oh Lord. But see, because I befriended her, she became my friend,
Hmm.
and she helped me. And
Hmm.
see that we have to. Nobody is the devil. Everybody has good qualities. Our problem is we don't look for them. We
Hmm.
need to look for them. We get so aggravated and annoyed about little things or big things that they've done that we don't see their humanity. They need to feel appreciated. They need to feel like they're in charge too. We have to give students opportunities. Oh, here, let me tell you another story. Okay, my son's in third grade, and the teacher, we're at parent teacher conference, and she's saying, Anthony's smart, blah blah blah, but when he finishes a test or work, he won't help anybody else. And so he's standing right there. You never do not talk behind your children's back with the teacher, with anybody. And anytime a teacher says something, you call the child right over and say, here's how the teacher sees it. Is that how you see it? Or here's how he sees it.
Hmm.
Mrs. So-and-so, Mr. So-and-so, is this how you see it? And then we can all come to some consensus. And Anthony said, yes, that's exactly what happens. And I said, well, are you able to help these children? He goes, yeah, I'm able. I said, are you willing? And he goes, no, I'm not.
That's the big question, right? Are you willing?
Are
Are you
you willing?
willing? Hmm.
And I said, well, why not? And he goes, because when she gives instructions, they don't listen, and they talk and don't pay attention. And then they don't know what to do. And then they want me to come and help them. Well, I'm not going to. They should have paid attention. And he's right.
100% right. So it made me think there's a quote, Eleanor Roosevelt, that says, the purpose of life, after all, is to live it, to taste experience to the utmost, to reach out eagerly and without fear for newer and richer experience. Right.
Mm.
So
That's the problem. We're also afraid to hear no, Scott. We're
that's it.
so afraid to hear no. When I was 16, I was so afraid of people. I had social anxiety. I had to practice saying hello to people on the street. I had a therapist. I had to practice. And my mother, God bless her soul, I told my mother I was seeing a therapist. Oh, she was a card. Anyway, so a practical woman from Italy. Anyway, so I said, Mom, I'm seeing a therapist. And that was a big deal for me to say something to her. She looks at me and she goes, people who see therapists need to have their heads examined.
That's great. Great.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mom.
Thanks.
But I had to practice saying hello to people. That's how introverted, and that's how the bondage of self. That is the bondage of self. I had to practice at the store smiling at people. And I had to say to myself, now look, if they don't, let's do an experiment. And if they don't smile back, it doesn't mean they're mad at you or they don't like you. It means that maybe something else is going on in their life. So why don't you see how many people do smile back? Why, and I would have to do this experiment. See how many times you can get people to not smile back.
Mhm.
Sometimes reverse it because I suffered. When you have the bondage of self, which most of us do in developed countries, I suffered. I
Mhm.
was afraid to make a mistake. I was afraid to hear no. I was useless. And
Mhm.
I tell parents now, if your child feels lonely, you tell them they go to school, they look for the lonely child. They be the leader.
Mhm.
They help others who are lonely. That's how you lead. That's how you learn to be a leader. And that old saying, too many chiefs, not enough Indians?
Yeah.
Nope, nope, nope. The way I see it, too many Indians and not enough chiefs.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people try to be chiefs and they're not ready. But you
Yeah.
know what? You got to practice and step up to the plate.
Did you ever think you would be here? Now we can't get you to stop talking, right?
I know. I know. You're like, oh my God.
You like that? All right, so I'm gonna switch gears. This might be uh, a little bit difficult to kind of have a conversation on, but I understand that you experienced profound loss of your husband to liver cancer. I'm
Mm.
curious, how did the experience shape your outlook on life and resilience, and what kind of advice would you give or would you offer to others navigating grief and loss?
Well, it was 3 weeks diagnosis to death.
Oh my God.
Yeah, 3 weeks diagnosis to death. And he went to the hospital emergency. And when they were transferring him from emergency to his room, he died. He died in the elevator. Just just so bizarre. Yeah, we were married 25 years. He had a big heart. He was a very a loving man. And then 6 months later, my mother died.
Mm,
So yeah, you know grief, grief loss is part of life, and the
mm,
older you get, the more you're going to lose. And
yeah.
my mother, I remember my mother telling me that. She said, Martha, the older you get, the more people you lose in your life. So you got to be strong. And she was always very strong. And you know, loss, you can't let loss define you. People
Mm,
are only here for a certain time. I was on a woman's podcast the other day, and she said, I believe that you make a deal with God before you get here. And
mm,
everything that happens to you, you've already made that decision. Everything you go through, because that's what you want to experience in this life. Now, whether you that's a good belief, because then when things happen, you're like, well, I'm here to experience that. How am I going to handle it? How am I going to handle it? And how am I going to handle it so I'm useful for other people? Because then again, when we're trapped in the bondage of self, oh yeah, okay, and there's another story too. But when we're trapped in the bondage of self, we can't help others. And I found that the more people grieve a loss, the more they didn't treat that person the way they knew they should have in life.
mm, mhm,
So when people go into hysterics and do all that kind of stuff, and I miss her, blah blah blah, and it's 6 months, 8 months, 9 months later, and they're still crying and not restoring their lives or being useful to anybody else. That's their bondage of self, but it's also the fact that they have so much guilt and shame that they
mhm,
didn't do what they thought they should have been doing with that
mm,
person.
mm.
That's how That's what I've noticed.
I feel like we can never do enough. You're gonna have a little bit of that, but, like, I'd say this commonly, and it's easier for me because I don't meet a stranger, right? I enjoy conversation. It's the whole reason I launched podcasts years ago, was to have
Mm,
conversations with people. But if I get some type of inspiration or feeling, like it could be somebody I don't know, they could be way across the room and it just something connects, like come over, like universe or whatever it told me, just said, come say hi to you. And that I see
mhm,
you over here. And I like your energy and just your charm and whatever it is showing. I just need to say that. Might be weird, but I just want to say I recognize it. Like, you just be amazed at what kind of conversations and what happens. And sometimes you get this big, huge smile and you see something come over somebody. And sometimes people are like, oh, really? So um, it's just about the connections that you try to make. So what the point, and I'm saying that is if you get any kind of feeling that you feel like you want to talk to somebody, tell somebody something you've been wanting to tell them, do it. Don't let it
Mhm.
go. Don't let it
Mhm.
become a regret. And something I commonly tell, like I did a talking head video where it was how to combat loneliness over 50, because this is the time, right? We become empty
Mhm.
nesters and all this kind of stuff. One of those things that I tell people to do is like open up your phone and scroll really fast through your contact list. Wherever it stops, press and call the person. It
Oh,
just
nice.
press and call the person. It's like call a person
Right.
roulette. And just say, hey, I was thinking about you. I just want to say hi. Nothing. Everything's great. I just want to say hi to you. I hope all is well. And you'd be
That's
surprised.
really
One,
nice.
what happens is with that reconnections, that kind of stuff. But it just feels good. And you've left an emotional deposit on somebody's life for that day. And then two, the
Yeah.
selfish side, man, you feel so damn good once you've done it. So
And it
yeah.
is, it's a rarity when people say something nice to us. I mean,
Oh my
that is, it's a rarity.
And that's my point. Like you almost in a way feel kind of like this might be weird, but I just want to tell you that I like the way
Mhm.
you walked in this room. It was
Mhm.
very, very cool to see you have presence and command, and you had this energy about you that was really magnetic. I just had to say that. That's all. That's
Yeah.
it. No
Yeah.
agenda. But you have to preface it because people are like, "What? What are you doing? Why are you being
What?
nice? You want something from me?" You know, You're like, I don't know you. You don't know me. I don't want anything. All I want to give you is tell you X. Like it's huge, man. It's huge. And then I tell you something else that I make a very, very concerted effort to do, particularly traveling. When you go through an airport
Mhm.
and you're through TSA and the people taking your ticket and stuff, like you already feel pressure and
Uh,
stress, like to get through that, right? I purposely slow down. I purposely slow down because I don't want to feel that anxiety and pain, but I
good
also
for
want to have a
you.
conversation with hey, I appreciate you. I appreciate, no, listen, I appreciate what you do. Thank you for being here every day and seeing all these people come through this line. Man, I see you. Like you won't believe what an impact that makes on somebody.
Wow. Yeah, that is great. Wow.
So throughout your career, you've contributed to the field of education, supported community, and even ventured into firewalking. That is amazing. What drives your passion for making a difference, and what advice would you give to others seeking to contribute to the world meaningfully? And you got to talk about the firewalking too. Like you can't just leave that hanging out there, right?
Uh, the first time I walked on fire 3 times. Once was at a Tony Robbins. That was the 3rd time.
Oh, I was going to say, was it at a Tony Robbins event?
Yeah,
Because
that
that's
that
really
was the 3rd time. The
oh my god.
2nd time was at a guy named Stuart Wilde in Colorado. Now, Stuart has passed on, but he used to write a lot of books. He was a metaphysical kind of guy. And the first one was in St. Louis, Missouri, at this guy's farm. And the first one was really interesting because it was a circular pit. The first 2 were circular pits. And what you build the fire. You sit around and you build the fire. So we all sat around. I forgot what the sticks and everything down. Then we set the fire. And then we go back in the house and we talk about mindset and they prepare you. So for the next 2 hours, it's all about look, we're going to go back out after the fires, because you're walking on ashes, hot ashes is really what it
Mhm.
is. And you go back and you have this whole seminar. And what was interesting is I was there with this woman who was a psychic reader. And the interesting thing about this psychic reader, we're going back a lot of years here, Scott. She said to me, this is before the firewalk incident. She had told me one day, she goes, I see you in school. And this had been when I quit college. I'd had
Mhm.
enough. I couldn't take it anymore. And I think I had just gotten a degree. And I said, I'll never go back. I'll never go back to school. She goes, I see you sitting in a college in a classroom. I said, you're nuts. 2 weeks later, I was working on my master's degree.
Oh my god.
But anyway, so I thought, whoa, okay. So I'm sitting with this woman, and here she is, chain smoking, and here she's the psychic, right? And she's like all
Mhm.
nervous about this situation. But anyway, so you go through this seminar for a couple of hours and get the right mindset to do this. Well, it's in a circle. There was a woman there with her teenage daughter, and so you walk when you're ready. Now we all stand around the circle, and the guy says, "Look, when you're ready, just walk across." And we're all barefoot and with our jeans rolled up.
Mhm.
And so I walk across, and it's like walking across a linoleum kitchen floor. It was cool. It was cool on my feet. And I was like, "Whoa!" Well, anyway, so I walk across, And then everybody walks across, and the guy goes, "Well, if anybody else wants to go again," and the mother didn't want to go again. The daughter did, and I said, "Well, come on, honey, we'll go together." So she and I walked across. Same thing. It was like walking across a cool linoleum floor. It was absolutely bizarre. Okay, so then that's that one. And then I think a year later, 2 years later, I go to Colorado with the Stuart Wild seminar, and the exact same thing. A circular pit. When you're ready, go. It was great, and it was the same experience, like walking across a cool. You're walking on hot fire, and it felt cool. All right, well, then I get to Tony Robbins. Not to throw Tony under the bus, but there's 1,000 people. The other two I had done, the first one was maybe 15 people, 10 people. The second one, 40 or 50. Well, now we get to Tony. You're talking about 1,000 people in Cancun. And we had already climbed, at Tony's. I got a picture of me doing this too. You have to climb this gigantic telephone pole, like 50 feet. You get to the top of it. Now, the top is only, I mean, your feet can barely fit on the top. But first off, you got to step onto the top of a telephone pole, which my feet could barely fit on. I get up there, I get to the top, I'm standing there. Then you have to jump to this trapeze. And then you get the trapeze, and then you get lowered down. Okay, now, and you're hooked up to a harness the whole time. It's very
Yeah.
safe.
Yeah.
So anyway, and I managed to do it all. I get on top. I'm like, man, I can barely fit my feet on this thing, because I have what one child said to me in ninth grade, no, 12th grade. He said to me, he goes, "How big are your feet?" I goes, "Oh, size 9." He goes, "You got size 9 gunboats." I felt bad about myself because I got big feet. Good Lord. Anyway,
So you don't have to rent skis when you go skiing? Is that what you're telling me?
so I do this at Tony Robbins. All right, so the next day or 2 days later, we're going to walk on the fire. Well, Tony does the same thing. We get out there, we see the fire started. We didn't do it. His team does it, makes the fire. Well, Tony's mind prepping us, and for some reason, I got a vision in my mind. You there?
Okay, you're back now. So you paid me back for my internet issues, and you
I
had
know
different
mine went
issues.
down. Yeah, I had to reconnect completely.
All right, so you were talking about you don't want to throw Tony on the bus, and you talked about the crew had built the fire. You had to do the jumping, the being harnessed in and all that. That's where you kind of were before you did this. You're frozen. So
Okay, so we had done that climbing the pole 2 days before the fire. All right, so now the fire's all set, and now there's like 1,000 people, and we're all lined up at this fire walk.
mm,
Okay, so at this one, here's the main difference that I think was different. At the other two, they said, "When you're ready, go." At this one, he had his assistants who would look us in the eye, and here we're all lined up, right? And so it's our turn to get, and this pit was a straight line, not a circle. So
mm.
we had to go straight down this pit. And
Oh, I think you're back. Oh, no, you're not.
you there?
You're
Okay.
back. Yeah, you're bouncing in and out.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway,
So
so he
straight
says,
line, they look in your eye and they're like, "Go."
"Okay, go. You can
Yeah.
go." All right. So I'm walking, and I'm like, wait a minute. My feet feel hot.
You're like, "Crap, I've never experienced this." Like,
And instead of jumping off, I keep walking.
yeah.
And I walked the whole way. My feet were hot, and yes, I had blisters, and it was very. And then I had to be on an airplane, put my feet in shoes the next day. But I was not the only one who got blistered. Other people did, and Tony even told us what to do, to try to make it better. And so yeah, it's all in the mind.
So is that what it came down to? Because it was the same, right, setup, right? Like virtually the same ash, cold, that kind of stuff, but it was all
It
about
was,
prep. Yeah.
and it was about they told us we're ready. The
Mm,
other two, I told myself I was ready.
mm,
Go
man,
when you're ready. Yeah.
that's a really good story. I love that. It's so true. I mean, it's so true. It's so true. So we gotta talk about this chicken soup for the soul cookbook. So you're a contributing author on that, right? How do you see food and cooking connecting with personal growth and well-being?
You know, this whole food thing, Scott, it's a big pain. Nowadays, you have to look at ingredients
Yeah.
and you have to be so careful about what you eat. Uh, uh, I love to cook. I don't use any processed. I use almost no processed foods,
Mhm.
almost zero, because you just can't trust them. And now everything says bioengineered, and I don't even know what that means, and it's not even defined. So if it says bioengineered, you know what? I go to the store. I'm looking for cream cheese, right? I cannot even find an unadulterated cream cheese.
Mhm.
That's just milk and cream or whatever it's supposed to be made of. It's got all these weirdo ingredients. So now, even cottage cheese, which is really just nothing but milk, made a certain way, you have I go for specific brands. So careful.
All right, I believe you're back.
Okay. Okay. So now we're talking about food. All right. You asked about the
We're t-
ingredients.
We've switched gears. We went from blisters on feet to now
The
food.
food.
What a great segue.
So the story in the Chicken Soup for the Soul cookbook was I was substitute teaching for an art class one day, and I taught the children how to draw a fish. It's so easy. It's really easy. But we were talking kindergarten here, and one little boy said, I can't draw this fish." And whenever children do this hopeless thing, and I figured that was like a big part of his way he operated in the world was the hopeless and the helpless. And so I said, you know what? I think you can do it. Why don't you look around at your friends and see how they're doing it? And then you give it a try, and I'll come back and check on you later. So I'm walking around the room and, check on everybody and see how they're doing. And the next thing you know, the kid's yelling, a fish, I drew a fish, I drew a fish. And he was so happy. And I remember thinking, well, and I think the title of the story is a fish, Lord, I need a fish.
Mm,
And but then he felt that successful because why? Because I didn't uh, fall into his trap, his helpless trap,
mhm, mhm.
and I let him be competent. And he decided to step up to the plate.
That's great. I love that. It's funny, like when sometimes people just want, you need to empower them. And then
Right,
it gives them permission in their own mind to then be able to do it. Right. It's like you go back to when you think about, and it's just terrible. I should know this because I'm in this space, but the mile run, like getting under a certain time limit, it hadn't been broken for years. And then a guy does it, right? He goes under the sub, whatever that
right, yeah.
number is. And
Rousey
within,
Bannister, yeah,
yeah. And then by the end of the year, like 100 other people had done it because it was kind of a validation, like, oh, I just need to be empowered and say it's okay. I can actually do this. Right.
yeah.
So, which is pretty interesting. It's so true. So you've been featured in Who's Who since the 1990s, and you were interviewed for the book Practical Happiness. What do you believe contributes to a fulfilling and joyful life? And what practical advice would you give and offer those seeking happiness?
Don't look for happiness.
Mm,
Happiness is elusive.
mm,
Look for usefulness. Look to be useful. Look for ways that you can help others. I remember Jack Canfield told us years ago, he said, when you go to a party, if you feel socially awkward and strange, well, you know what you do? You greet everybody. You
mm,
become the greeter. You make other people feel better. And it's the same thing at Alcoholics Anonymous. We pick the person who's the most introverted and afraid of people and make them a greeter. Hey, you want to be the greeter? Yeah, good. You stand there and you say hi to everybody that walks in that door. And if it's a person that you totally don't recognize, ask them, "Are you new?" And that gets them out of their shell, and then they can feel useful rather than standing there, worrying about what other people think of them. So stop worrying about what other people think of you and start thinking about how you can help someone else who's shy. Help someone else. In fact, a Facebook post a man said about he and his son saw a disabled child, and his son was staring at the child. And the man said, "I didn't know what to do." And I said, "You know what? Next time you go up to the child
yeah.
and you ask the mother, can we speak to your son, your daughter?" And of course, they're desperate for interaction. And say to
That's
the child, "How old are you?
mhm.
Do you go to school? Do you like school? Or what are you doing today?" And if they can't respond, you respond for them and say, "Wow, I'm so happy to see you out here." And people are so afraid to be wrong. Could get out there and help others. Be useful.
That's it. And it's funny, like when it's is kind of a common theme in a lot of things that you're saying here is it's like when you focus the attention off of self and onto others, man, so many beautiful things happen. And like healing happens for you too. Cause then then you're telling yourself you can actually do this as well. And you're
Right.
pouring into somebody else, which is such a beautiful thing. I mean, like I'm at a time, and I don't know how you are, Martha, but I have found that particularly when I passed the 50 mark, probably before then, it's because at this point in our life, like, yeah, we want to be still have financial gains and make money, right? Obviously, but for me, my personal self, the emotional deposits are so much more important than financial deposits at this time in my life. And one of the best ways to do that is to give back,
Hmm.
whether it's in conversation or seeing,
Hmm.
whatever those kind of those obvious things that you can do. It feels amazing because those things, money comes and goes, but those
Hmm.
emotional deposits and stuff, man, they make indelible marks on people's lives and on yourself.
That's
Like
right.
it's a two-way street. You're benefiting them and it benefits you as well. So, and it creates really good, fun, healthy habits too. It really does. So
Exactly.
yeah. So we are now into the portion of rapid fire questions. So it's really important. This is the most important part of the show. So you have to answer very quickly. I hope you're buckled in. I hope that you're ready for this. They're hard hitting. You got to really think deep about these
All right.
with these with these rapid fire questions. So uh, let's pop into this. Here it looks like I just want to make sure we got good internet. I'll edit this little piece out too, just to make sure that we're good on internet. All right, here we go. What's one piece of advice you'd give your 20-year-old self?
Stop worrying.
Hmm. Books or movies?
Books
Early bird or night owl?
early.
We talked about food. What's your go-to comfort food?
Donuts.
If you can master any skill instantly, what would it be?
AI.
That's good. That's where it's all going, right? One word to describe your current chapter of life.
The best.
Mm. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
One day at a time.
Mm. What's your favorite way to unwind after a long day?
Boy, that's a really good question. You know what? Watch a mindless movie.
Yeah. Oceans or mountains?
Well, I'm not going to climb the mountain, and I almost drowned in the ocean. I don't know. I can't answer that one.
You're like neither. I'll leave them both. Uh, if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Oh, oh my goodness. Resisting donuts.
Is that a superpower? That's so funny. I've never gotten one like that before. All right, that's good. So talk about let's. I'm going to link obviously the your books and all that kind of stuff, but tell people where they can find you and whatnot, and what you're currently working on. What are kind of
Yeah,
some
go to my web.
aspirations? Yep, good.
I do parenting workshops, and they're starting in January. So 4 weeks. Let's get that worst behavior of your child out of the way.
Mm,
4 weeks on Zoom, and we're going to get something solved. But I also, because I love the addiction and addict community, I also have a program for addiction addicts and alcoholics. So we're going to do the same thing. 4 weeks. Let's get some sobriety under your belt. Let's get you to start seeing things in a different way, a more positive way. Let's get you out of that bondage of self. 4 weeks, and let's just get her done. So you can go to my website. I don't have those programs up yet, but marthaburich.com, and you can read about my dog,
mm.
and you can contact me, Martha at marthaburich.com. Send me an email. But I'll start getting the information for those programs out on Facebook and LinkedIn and all of that stuff, Instagram, and I have a YouTube channel, and I think it's at Martha Burich. Check that one out. I don't know. You know how YouTube is. You got who knows how many names on there. But anyway, you can get me on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and and who knows what else. Whatever the internet opens up, good Lord, you just got to rush right in there.
That's it. So it's Martha Burich, MarthaBurich.com
Yeah,
for the
yeah.
audio listeners. Of course, it'll be in the show notes on the audio portion and
But
of course
and the
YouTube.
book's on Amazon. Yes,
Yes,
you can.
I'll link that. I've got that link you shared with me. That'll
Great.
be in the notes as well. So this is, of course, the last portion that I always like to do. What final words of wisdom or inspiration do you have for the listeners today?
It's all going to work out. Just don't worry about yesterday. Don't worry about tomorrow. Do your best today,
Mm,
and tomorrow's going to work out just fine.
I love that. Well, thanks, guys, for tuning in to another episode of Reinventing Life After 50. And until next time, this is always to your health and wellness. Bye
Bye. Thanks, Scott. Great fun.
now.